Did you know that under the Nazi regime, Germany experienced a rapid economic transformation that transformed it from a struggling economy to one of the most powerful in the world? Yes, in just a few short years, the country went from a high unemployment rate and a weak currency to a booming economy that could finance the war machine that would eventually engulf the world. In this video, we will explore the economic policies and practices implemented by the Nazi government that helped transform Germany into an economic powerhouse, whilst also exploring the darker side of these policies. We will discuss how the Nazi government supported German businesses, created jobs, and promoted self-sufficiency through autarky or economic self-reliance. However, we will also explore the use of forced labour, the exploitation of prisoners of war, and the looting of conquered territories that supported this economic growth. By examining the economic policies of the Nazi government, we can learn more about the history of this tumultuous period, as well as gaining insight into how economic policies can impact the development of authoritarian regimes. But before we do get into it, guys, make sure to subscribe to the channel to see much more content just like this one. Now back to the video. The origins of Nazi Germany's economic policies and practices can be traced back to the tumultuous political and economic climate in Germany following the First World War. Germany had been left devastated by the war, with its infrastructure and economy in shambles. The Treaty of Versailles, which officially ended the war, imposed harsh reparations and sanctions on Germany, further crippling the country's economy. In addition, the new democratic government, established in the aftermath of the war, the Weimar Republic, faced vast political unrest, high unemployment, and hyperinflation. These conditions made it difficult for the Weimar government to govern effectively, and many Germans grew disillusioned with democracy and turned to extremist parties. One of these parties was the National Socialist German Workers' Party, commonly known as the Nazi Party. The party was founded in 1919 by Anton Drexler, a railwayman, and was initially a small fringe group. However, under the leadership of Adolf Hitler, who became the party's leader in 1921, the Nazi Party grew rapidly in popularity. Hitler's fiery rhetoric and promises to restore German pride and strength resonated with many Germans who felt humiliated and betrayed by their government and their defeat in World War I. By 1933, the Nazi Party had become one of the largest political parties in Europe. In January of that year, Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany and quickly consolidated his power, establishing a dictatorship that would last until the end of World War II. The Nazi government's economic policies were a key part of this consolidation of power. The Nazi economic policies were based on the concept of autarky, or economic self-reliance. The goal of this policy was to make Germany self-sufficient in all areas, including food, raw materials, and energy. The Nazis believed that self-sufficiency was necessary to ensure the survival of the German people in the event of war, as well as to create a strong, independent German economy that would support the regime's other goals, such as rearmament and conquest. To achieve this goal, the Nazi government implemented a series of economic policies designed to promote domestic production and limit imports. The most important of these policies was the 4-year plan, which was introduced by Hermann Göring, Hitler's designated economic planner, in 1936. The 4-year plan set ambitious production targets for key industries such as steel, rubber, and oil, and sought to create a closed economic system in which Germany would produce everything it needed domestically. The 4-year plan also introduced a number of measures designed to promote domestic production, such as subsidies for key industries, tax breaks for businesses, and restrictions on imports. The Nazi government also implemented a policy of forced labour, in which prisoners of war, foreign workers, and concentration camp inmates were forced to work in German factories and mines. Another key economic policy of the Nazi government was the promotion of small businesses and the elimination of large corporate interests. Hitler and other Nazi leaders believed that these companies were a threat to German independence and self-sufficiency, and that small, independent businesses were better suited to the task of building a strong, independent German economy. To promote this vision, the Nazi government introduced a number of measures to support small businesses, such as low-interest loans and tax breaks. Under the Nazi regime, labour played a critical role in the economy, serving as a means to promote the growth and expansion of the country. The German Labour Front was created in 1933 to oversee all aspects of labour in Germany, including collective bargaining, worker training, and the provision of social benefits. The Nazi government implemented a range of policies to reduce unemployment and increase labour productivity. One such policy was the introduction of the Labour Service in 1935. This programme provided employment opportunities for young men who were required to perform public works projects such as road construction and land reclamation. Another key policy was the introduction of the Strength Through Joy programme in 1933. This programme aimed to improve the working and living conditions of German workers through the provision of leisure activities and affordable travel opportunities. The KDF also played a role in promoting Nazi ideology and fostering a sense of national pride amongst German workers. Forced labourers were subjected to appalling conditions, including long hours, little food, and no pay. Many were also subject to physical abuse and torture. The Nazi government considered forced labourers to be expendable, and the death rate amongst these workers was appallingly high. In addition to forced labour, the Nazi regime also exploited prisoners of war for labour. Under the Geneva Convention, prisoners of war were supposed to be treated in accordance with international law and given adequate food, shelter, and medical care. However, the Nazi government largely ignored these requirements, with many prisoners dying as a result of the inhumane conditions in which they were kept. The use of forced labour and the exploitation of prisoners of war were both part of the wider strategy of the Nazi government to wage a total war. By conscripting large numbers of people into labour camps and putting them to work on public works projects and in factories, the Nazi government were able to keep the war effort going for longer than would otherwise have been possible. However, the human cost of these policies were immense, and the legacy of its impact is still felt today. The role of business and industry was essential to the economic policies implemented by the Nazi government in Germany, with the aim of achieving national self-sufficiency and preparing for war. The regime undertook a number of measures to promote the interests of German businesses and industry, including the establishment of state-owned enterprise and the promotion of national champions. We will explore these economic policies that the Nazi government aimed to boost business and industry. For example, what they did with state-owned enterprises. The Nazi government established a number of these state-owned enterprises, known as the Reichswerk, Hahn and Göring, to support the production of war materials and other strategic goods. These enterprises were given preferential treatment in terms of financing, raw materials, and labour. The government also provided subsidies and tax breaks to private companies that produced goods deemed critical to the war effort. The Nazi government also encouraged the creation of large industrial conglomerates that could compete on the global stage. These companies were referred to as national champions and were given preferential treatment again in terms of credit, raw materials, and labour. The most prominent of these companies was the German steel giant Thyssen AG. The Nazi government used its economic policies to promote its ideology and gain the support of the population. It portrayed its policies as being in the best interests of the German people, while demonising groups such as Jews, communists, and labour unions. The Nazi government targeted Jewish-owned businesses, seizing their assets and transferring them to non-Jewish owners. This policy had a devastating impact on the Jewish population and further entrenched economic inequality in Germany. The Nazis' policies towards international trade and finance were focused on promoting again self-sufficiency and reducing Germany's dependence on foreign goods and capital. The government imposed tariffs and imports and manipulated the currency to maintain a favourable balance of trade. The Nazi government implemented a series of high tariffs on imported goods to protect domestic industries and reduce Germany's dependence on foreign goods. The government used a combination of tariffs and import quotas to control the flow of goods into the country, with a particular focus on food and other essential goods. This policy had the effect of increasing the cost of living for German consumers, who were forced to pay higher prices for basic necessities. The Nazi government also manipulated their currency to maintain a favourable balance of trade. The government controlled the exchange rate of the Reichsmark, which made German goods cheaper for foreign buyers and increased the price of imported goods. This policy had the effect of reducing imports whilst increasing exports, which helped the country to build up their own foreign reserves. The Nazi government's policies towards international trade and finance had a significant impact on the German economy and its relationship with other countries. The policy of self-sufficiency and protectionism had a short-term benefit for the German economy, as it allowed the country to build up its domestic industries and reduce its dependence on foreign goods. However, in the long run, this policy had a negative impact on the country's economic growth and development. The high tariffs and import quotas made it difficult for German firms to compete in the global marketplace, and the manipulation of the currency led to inflation and a loss of confidence in the German economy. This was whilst these same policies had a negative impact on Germany's relationship with other countries, particularly the United States and Great Britain. The high tariffs and import quotas made it difficult for American and British firms to do business in Germany, which led to a reduction in trade between these two countries. The manipulation of the currency also created tensions between Germany and other countries, as it was seen as an unfair trade practice. One of the most controversial aspects of the Nazi regime's economic policy was the role of looting in the German economy. The Nazi government looted vast amounts of gold and other assets from conquered territories, including art, jewellery, and other valuable goods. Looting was a critical source of financing for the Nazi regime, as it allowed the government to build up its reserves and finance the war effort. The looted gold was melted down and used to fund the war machine, while other looted assets were sold on the black market to finance. The use of looted assets in the Nazi economy is a highly controversial topic, both from the moral and legal perspective. The looting of art and other cultural artifacts has been widely condemned as a violation of international law and an attack on the cultural heritage of the conquered people. In conclusion, the Nazi economy was a complex system of policies and practices that had far-reaching impacts on Germany and the world. Through policies like autarky, the 4-year plan, and the exploitation of forced labour, the Nazi government was able to rapidly expand the German economy and build a war machine that was capable of taking over much of Europe. However, these policies came at a great human cost, with millions of people being subjected to slavery, persecution, and genocide. The legacy of the Nazi economy is one of caution and vigilance, and the world must remain vigilant against the rise of similar ideologies and economic systems that place the interests of the state above the rights of the individual. We must also recognise the importance of international cooperation and the rule of law in promoting a fair and just global economy. Thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy this one, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Also, why not check out one of our other videos, as there are plenty more like this one up on the channel. Have a great day, guys.